Good morning. Welcome to SafeDefend Live. I am Dave Evans with the founder, owner, and king of all things that are SafeDefend. I should use king, but great guy leading SafeDefend, Jeff Green. Today we're going to talk about the active shooter process, how it happened in Pittsburgh and how it differed in California, and things you need to think about as a parent, an administrator, a teacher, and if you're a student listening, as a student. Jeff, it is great to see you today, brother. Talking to you from our studios in Guthrie, Oklahoma.
Sunny Guthrie.
Sunny Guthrie. It's sunny and hot.
just like it is in Kansas City. So yeah, absolutely. Summer is here. It's been a pretty interesting week. It started off with what they were labeling as an active shooter in Pittsburgh, which really wasn't by definition ended up being an active shooter. It's interesting that becomes the go-to.
It is.
There's any sort of shots fired, that's almost the immediate initial reaction. Now, don't get me wrong, it still was a very difficult situation for law enforcement and scary for everybody that was in that scenario. But we're really applying this label where it really doesn't fit. It's becoming just the preferred response immediately out of the gate. So it was pretty interesting that the Pittsburgh situation was really a barricade situation. It was an eviction. It was law enforcement against an individual who didn't feel that they had to follow the law enforcement's rules and felt aggrieved. And the one huge tie-in that we can really get to, and I'll talk about California here in a second as well, Dr. Vecchi's research, which we've really been blessed to get exposed to. But Dr. Vecchi's research really focuses on the grievance that someone has in these types of situations. There was a grievance in both of these situations that is glaringly obvious when you really start looking at it. And as you really start digging into all of these active shooter, mass killings, any of these events that we tend to have, with just a little bit of either research or paying attention to what they're saying in those news reports, you can really identify the grievance almost immediately. And that's where all of his threat assessment and intervention ideas really come into play, is if we can stop that grievance before it gets to this point.
Yep.
And we can't always. The individual in Pittsburgh was in his brother's house, was living there, wasn't paying for it. It got taken over by the bank, sold. He was getting evicted. He wasn't necessarily an individual that felt that the laws applied to him, and he had a grievance against law enforcement and the government, and he, acted out. California, the interesting thing about California, it's Southern California, Orange County. The individual is a retired law enforcement officer. So it really can happen to anybody. If the grievance process isn't identified and intervened in along the way. But he went into a bar where his soon-to-be ex-wife or ex-wife was in there. He had a grievance against her, and other victims became collateral damage because of his grievance against his ex-wife. And that's where that prevention piece really comes in, is if someone can identify that someone's on the path with a grievance, get that intervention in place, intervene somehow, you can really stop a lot of these before they get to that point. Now, we can never get down to an absolute zero. We can never say this is never, we're never going to have individuals who take it to the next level. And sometimes they go through that process very quickly and get to the part where their violence is their answer. But it really becomes interesting. We were enlightened by Dr. Vecchi's research, and when you really start looking at all of these episodes and all of these events and tragedies, there absolutely is a glaring grievance that stands out that individual has against that school, that teacher, that ex-wife, that law enforcement, whatever the case may be. Always look for the grievance, and that will really give you the insight of why a lot of these are taking place. Because that's one of our biggest questions, is why did this happen? I think we're starting to be able to figure out why a lot of these are happening. and it's because someone's going through that grievance process and it's not getting supported, and it gets to the point where they don't feel they have other options.
Well, I think it's an interesting comment on the grievance side. And the interesting thing is, we are afraid to say something, right? If we see a peer struggling, we're afraid to approach them. Hey, are you okay?
Right.
Can I help you? What's going on? I think more and more people are kind of keeping to themselves because we've become so combative as a society, whether it's social media or text messaging or whatever else. We like to see the downfall of other people. And I think we need to, as Americans, we need to shift our thought process about how do we help our community? How do we help our brothers and sisters? Suicide in the military is through the roof because of grievances and things going on at many bases. Suicide in the police force is higher than ever because of the stress of those police officers. Well, guess what? If they're to the point where they're going to take their life, there's a good chance they can be pushed to the point where they're going to take somebody else's life. And I think that's the case in California with the officer and his wife. Unfortunately, he walked into a biker bar and picked a fight, which probably wasn't the best decision for anyone.
Right.
No, you're dead on. The other aspect that I think we downplay a lot is that familiarity bias, right? So
Yep.
people that are close to those that undertake these criminal acts and violent acts, you default to they're probably just having a tough time, or I know them, they're not going to go down that path, or you just brush off some of the signs that you see. This happens a lot in inappropriate teacher-student relationships. Teachers have signs all the time, but they know that person, they know that teacher, they know that individual. Same thing. It's really hard to see one of your friends struggling, and you don't really, or someone struggling, and you don't really immediately go to the fact that they might take this to a level that's going to cause harm to others. And that's something we have to get over with. 100% see something, say something, and support your. Always default to, hey, over supporting is better than under. So, all those things that you talk about. Yes, there's that hesitancy that to intervene for a couple different reasons. One, if you don't know them that well, you don't want to be in that position of causing potential conflict. And if you do know them well, you're probably going to default to the fact that they're not as bad as they are, or they're not going to take it to the level that they end up taking it to.
That's a fact. And unfortunately, we as human beings have to learn to be better human beings. We've lost sight of that fact. And I think, now that we're recognizing the why, and SafeDefend is working to help other people understand the threat assessment process, it's time for you, if you're watching this, to put your head on a swivel. If people are struggling, give them a hug. Make sure they're okay. Ask the question, do you need some help? Are you okay? Until we start behaving that way, we're not going to see this trend go down anytime soon. I mean, the economy is terrible right now. People have more stress than ever. Money is tight. All those things that make things hard are getting harder. So we have to be very vigilant with our students, with our teachers, with our friends and family, to make sure they're doing okay and they aren't to a place where they're going to act out in a way that will ruin somebody's life or the rest of their life.
And you're right on. The stressors that are being applied right now, plus the mental health crisis that we're facing in this country from the lockdowns and from the COVID scare and issues that we had to deal with on that end of it. Interestingly enough, that these typically are not a mental health aspect applied to it. It's not like there was a mental health issue, that's why this person went and did this. Sometimes there is that component that's involved, but it can be stressors. It can be the most normal individual with the wrong stressors applied gets to that point where they don't feel there's any other option, and that's what we're seeing. And so we have, just exactly what you're saying. We've really got to take a look at who's around us, who seems to be in a struggle or a crisis moment. And you know what? I would much rather default to say, hey, look, man, is there anything I can do to help? What can I do? Let's go, let's start dealing with this, than stand back there and say, I wish I would have done something.
Yeah, agreed. And I just want to thank SafeDefend, Jeff, you and all that you and the rest of the team are doing to keep our kids safe, to provide systems to schools to react when the worst thing happens, but more importantly, the training development you guys are doing to work on the left side of this so we can prevent it before it happens.
Get to the heart of that grievance, and it'll definitely make a difference.
That's a fact. Well, Jeff, we have anything else for today?
Just try to stay cool if you're in the middle of all the heat around the country, and have a great weekend.
Hey, hydrate if you're a football player. Tonight's kickoff night for all the high schools. This weekend was week 0 for the colleges. So if you're a fan, the season has started. I hope you guys enjoy it. With that, Jeff and Dave, we are out of here.
Have a good one.